Welcome back. My name is Yana the Heretic, and this is my channel, Electromagnetic Identity, where I talk about the science of differentiation and depict the I Ching wheel as we transit through 2026 and leave the energy and the flavor of these gates and how they work within us as they are in transit. And as our nation experiences something that has never ever occurred in history that we are aware of. And even if it was similar, it was never like this. We can feel the plates shifting in our nation everywhere. It doesn't matter which country you're in. There's something going on that has never been happening before. And I specifically am going to be talking about Gate 25. It is called The Spirit of the Self, and the keynote is Innocence. This is the beginning of Archangel Michael's reign, and he is the protector and the guidance that is amidst spiritual warfare. And Archangel Michael's reign is kind of all over the place. He is the pillar that is godly. And even though it's all over the place from individual to tribal, back to individual, and collective, this is about really like expelling who we are as we initiate. This is the very crux, the very center of the quarter of initiation. And it is really where we are attempting to see how we are just, how we are innocent, how we are opinionated, and how we like to shock things into initiation, and how we are tribal, how we use our money. So this is all Archangel Michael's reign. I know that a lot of people tend to call on Archangel Michael when they have lost something, when they need guidance, when they need help, when they need strength. So starting with the identity center, this is called the Spirit of the Self. And when you see people have this gate, they're very lightweight and curious. It is called Innocence because there is this beautiful perception. If you see somebody that has innocence motivation, they tend to be having a good time like a kid. Or they tend to be very curious about their environment, like they're just experiencing things for the first time. And, you know, they look pretty jolly, even though sometimes it could seem foolish to other people. And innocence is a very challenging one because, you know, there's this childlike nature. This is the child before, you know, they are touched by conditioning. This is also the sage or the crone. And it's the innocence that happens after so much life experience that I don't have the energy to argue. You know, I still love you. It's fine. You can think differently from me, but I'm going to still walk my way. So this is an individual gate, and it is creative in its way because it's got this like spirit, right? This is like really the essence of your spirit, and there is none like it because you are truly yourself. And the reason that this can be very difficult, especially within Archangel Michael, is the abuse of innocence, the abuse of, you know, needing to be the first holy man, the most innocent, the most, clean or pure in that way. And it's pretty sad when people race to that definitive chair of being the Pope, or, appearing to be the most righteous, because that, I don't see why that is the important aspect of innocence. Why can't we all have it? Why does there have to be the leader of innocence? And I understand that some people want to have that pillar of purity. They want to have that one man that listens to their sorrows, that tells them they are forgiven. But a lot of the time, this is brutally abused, because it just gets so tangled up in this dogma. And when you look at the I Ching wheel and you look at the very keynote for the I Ching, it's considered to be unentanglement. This gate is about not getting so caught up in everything. How are you going to go merrily along your way if you're going to be stumbling on all these pebbles and all these rocks that are along your way? Because you're just like, oh, here's a limitation, oh, here's another limitation. That does not equate to innocence. That is pure. And that is how you become that person that reeks of shit and despises what you see in the mirror. That is not innocence. That is somebody that is so self-critical that they beat themselves, that they feel the need to be punished for things that are lightweight, the things that are human. And the reality is, to get to that point of innocence again, you're going to be tangled up. That is kind of the point of life. You're going to be, bumping into things. You're going to, especially if you're a martyr, if you're a profile 3, this is you bumping into things. This is you getting tangled up, getting like a whiff of your own shit. You're reeking. Because in order to get back to the shamanic state of flow, you're going to have to realize how you're wrong. You're going to have these brutal, acts of facing yourself and really like looking at yourself and saying, I forgive myself. I see where I have gone wrong. I see where life has taken me astray, and I've seen the limitations that I have had, because I wasn't carefree. And that is the negative aspect of innocence, is this very critical dogma that, tries to judge others about what's going on and how they should be. And the reality is, if you pump up your spirit so much on go juice and you're trying to get there first, this is all of those people that are like pressing all of the investment buttons, let's like invest into this digital wallet, and like totally ignoring like what goes behind all of these actions. They're like, yeah, sure, everyone does it. Why not? That's becoming the fool, because you're like, well, yeah, like everyone does it. So like, what's wrong, Oh yeah, everyone's a pedophile, like in fucking 1990 or 1980. Like, what's so wrong about singing about 17-year-olds and like, being old but loving the young in such a defiled way? That is the pure foolishness that happens, because you know why? They're attracted to innocence. They have completely lost it. So they become this like nasty, perverse human because they have completely no path to reaching innocence other than defiling it in all these ways. The beautiful clear spring is one that flows. It is free of pollution and valuing all forms of this life, all life forms equally. You know, bewildered by these mystical spires that earth gives us. That is the state of innocence, is being bewildered in this like wandering trance-like state of, wow, this is life, you know. My cup is so full, my spirit is so full. And then there's this nasty, stagnant, polluted water, and that is hollowness, and that's fallacy, and that's all of those things painted out to be profits, but really, here's my wallet, give me profits. And this is all the churches and all the fundraisers and all the subscriptions and all these things that, yeah, like everyone does it. Why don't you just apply? Why don't you just put this app on your phone? Why don't you just like get into this community? But we don't really like actually care, but we're doing all the things that like seemingly make us look like we care. And realistically, we don't, because somebody is making money at the backbone of it. Somebody is putting all that thing into their own pocket. And of course, there are great churches and communities and fundraisers. But how do you actually know where your energy's going? And why do you have to stray from your own innocence in order to feel accomplished? So I definitely feel like this is a lot of the time those people that like Bill Gates or, you know, Elon, they actually like are hiding behind their, well, I did all this stuff for people, it's so much easier to exist, you know, but really like are the most shitty people that exist, because as they present themselves, they don't seemingly give a shit about others, you know. Oh yeah, like let's put Neuralink in your head, but you know, how are you gonna afford that if you are on disability? So you will not beam a gram of pure wisdom or innocence if you play a role that you are unfairly fit to be. That is not what this is about. This is extremely prevalent. If there's somebody that's scolding you that you're not giving enough money for your church, that is not the way things go. You know, you don't have to prove to anybody that you are holy. You know, you don't have to pay anybody money to be part of, you know, this tribe in order to like appear to be the most innocent and holy. The type of churches that are wonderful are the ones that are like, hey, you don't have to come and show up for this. You could still love spirituality and religion on your own, and you don't have to show up. Like, no one's gonna scold you for this. No one's gonna slap you on the hand for this. You know, the universal like fair share is so abused for sure in this way. People tend to look at you and judge you, and that is also not a part of innocence. And theft of innocence, it just breaks your heart. The theft of innocence that has happened throughout these years. You know, I was born in the 90s, so all the things that I've seen, you know, within the 90s and the 2000s, and like, this is the theft of our time, of our focus, the theft of our spirit, because we're just now being siphoned into this distracted world. The ones that pointing fingers at others, those are the ones that you should be really worried about. If somebody's pointing their finger at you and being like, yeah, you're not holy enough, you already know. You already know. I know you're smart. So, like, what the fuck? When they're, where does the sacrifice end? Like, where does it draw its line? This is all about blood. This is about blood money. This is about sacrifice, you know, innocence. Like, if you think about this story that everyone obsesses over and that talks about, and that everyone bases their life on, this beautiful story, beautiful, you know, but it's all about sacrificing innocence in order to save humanity. And that's Jesus' story, or Yeshua's story. But, you know, people kind of like slapped it together haphazardly, you know, and thanks to all the things that happened in history where our books got burned because of communism and all this shit that happened, you know, during the war. So, reeling it in, you know, just reeling it in, and like being the sovereign version of yourself can be extremely difficult because you have eyes on you, and it's like, you don't have to prove to anybody that you have this spirit. This is the driving force in your identity to just like really become something that you're proud of. You know, the person that you see in the mirror that you're really proud of, that you're really like, yeah, I can see like myself getting stronger. I could see myself being kinder. I could see myself shedding my trauma in all of these ways that require me to be present with myself and not shy away from the things that are the problem. You know, when I am the problem, I take accountability for those things. And I apologize and I say, hey, like, I'm sorry I made you feel that way, you know? And then tra-la-la, like, on your way, you know? And you're happy and you're full of life and curiosity. But people make it so difficult, you know? And, like, as the ages go, it is progressing to where, like, these youths do know a lot more about trauma and, like, care and self-care. But there's like, you know, this push and pull into like, okay, well now they have all this access to all these things people are saying, but how are they actually taking it in, you know? Before, you know, we kind of had our own journeys, like, especially me, like with psychedelics and like being able to expand my own consciousness in this sovereign way. But these kids are getting exposure from all of this, you know, and exposure from my generation where it's like, okay, like we have this language now and we have, you know, all these like revelations, you know, that have come from before. And now they're getting all this amazing wordage, but like, how are they actually taking it in, you know, and like using it as like, bait is also a problem, you know, or like, oh, you need more self-work, or, you know, like that's the whole other wave and current of this new generation that we'll see, where they're using this like really broad language, but it's like, how are you actually integrating this? How are you integrating it? You're hearing it from other people. And this is why, you know, like, innocence is really, really something that you experience without having social media, without having technology. This is innocence is experienced when you're outside making a freaking fire in the woods. You know, you're like, how am I gonna do this? Oh shit, I did this. Oh my goodness, I made a fire. You know, you get this like spirit, this like, wow, like, you know, so many people can't make a fire. You know, it takes them hours and I happen to make it within 5 minutes. This is awesome. Like, I feel pretty godly right now. It's simple. It's simple, you know? I'm getting I'm getting emotional about it because, you know, how many of us have to sit within this like cell, which is our body and our mind and our consciousness, and just be so violently disrupted by the abuse of innocence in the world. You know, people just can't let it go. They just can't just like shut the fuck up and exist and be content, you know? They just gotta like mess with things and like be so difficult instead of carefree, you know? The sacrifice for the future. Let's talk about that for a second. The sacrifices for the future. This is also a part of Archangel Michael. You know, this is all about, well, what are we looking forward to? Like, how are we going to make this nation a thing? Like, what are we looking forward to? What are we initiating ourselves to become and initiating others to become with us? You know, and that is why, like, I believe this is also something about investing, you know, this Archangel Michael age and the initiatory aspects of, like, what are we investing our time and our energy and money as energy into? And definitely a lot of people, I would just suggest more people doing their research, man, because, you know, they're like, yeah, like, well, in like 10 years, I'm going to make a bunch of money. And they don't really care about the things that are being abused, you know, and all of the things that are going to be defiled in the future. I think that's really what this is about, especially in 2026, as we're seeing the progression of tech bros and, you know, their whole fixation on, you know, getting people connected, but obviously it's disconnecting us a lot, actually, from mentorship, from one-on-one time with the people we care about. And I don't know what people are racing towards. I don't know, like, why, like, there's such a race towards the spirit, you know, of the self. This is the need to be first, right? And I don't have this gate, you know, maybe other people can kind of fill in the gaps, but, you know, there's no version of me that wants to be seated at the throne of being first. I want to do things correctly, but, you know, these people that have the spirit of the self, or the gate of shock, which we will get to in the next couple gates, it's just that, like, ha, I'm here first, you know, where's my prize? So, you know, it's sad that there's so many people whose names are written into time when it comes down to this age. I use them. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, freaking the meta guy, forgetting his name, thank God. Ugh. But, you know, whose blood do you have to spill to not feel shame? That's also a part of this, you know. Do you feel the sacrifice? Do you feel that the sacrifice has to be made And whose blood has to be spilled in order for you to feel okay with what you're doing? Is it the rats? Is it the monkeys? Is it, people that apply to do, like they take the drugs, pharmaceuticals, all the things. Like, whose blood do you have to spill for things to actually change? That is behind the need of being first. It's like, well, I'm forming this legacy, and this is my legacy. I made this happen. So this is all about the initiatory aspect. It's like, you're initiating yourself to form this legacy. This is going to live on forever, and that is why I'm going on a tangent, is because it's so important to think about the ethics of everything. And I know that it's not always going to be possible for everything to be ethical. There's people that dug up graves to learn anatomy. That is how we did things, because we are always just seeking how to get this knowledge out of us. Like, how does this work? We're just such curious beings. And this is exactly the energy behind it, the energy behind our identity. You have to explore. You want to really rise triumphantly. You want to be saved from your sins. You want to feel happiness and no shame, no guilt. You want to just live carefree. This was never really meant to be the biblical, the pagan, the clandestine strictness. It's not about that at all. This is the person that believed in himself, no matter what. This is the blood that is individual, that courses through you. The person, regardless of the fire, regardless of the stones, the spears, the isolation, the humiliation, being burned at the stake, regardless all of that, this is the person that's going to stand for their own personal innocence. No matter what corner they're pushed into, they're going to be honest. It is such a natural honesty. It's so beautiful to watch when people really pursue the highlights of this gate. There's so many people that are scared. This is really, people that are scared of being forgotten, scared of being irrelevant, dumb, impolite, forgotten. These are people that are scared to not be included. And that's a lot of things to really think about, as you're initiating yourself. Are you doing it? What reason are you doing it for? Is it because you don't want to be forgotten? Is it because of some of these really kind of low energies and these portals? It's being included is important, for sure. Being included in the authentic place you should be is the most ideal form of existence. It's not time for passivity, and it's not time to put your floaty on and just go down the river. Even though, it's getting warmer or whatever, this is about being that pillar in the water that erodes very slowly throughout aeons of time. This is exactly what Archangel Michael looks like in the person that you can really look up to, the person that really strive to become, because they have this purity about them where it's very personal, and it is very attractive. So that is the way that you should initiate yourself in this year as we go towards 2027. This year is not even over at all. Like, it's getting wilder as time goes by. And there's a lot of turbulence. There's a lot of movement. If you have spirit, bring it. You know, if you have this gate, bring it. Bring your freaking identity, your authentic identity to the table so that you know where you're at. Know thyself this year, man. And brave the currents, you know? Be that pillar within these outdated stories and these outdated systems and, you know, all these fights between people. And we have never before been in this place, especially if you live in America, and I desire that everybody really feels solid pillars within this year. And with that said, I'm gonna go into the questions of this week. How do you present your innocence in your world? What does innocence mean to you? How does that word make you feel when you say it? At what time in life has sacrifice helped you feel of purpose in a balanced way? At what time has sacrifice made you really bitter? Do you choose to forgive people because it's the right thing to do? Do you choose to forgive people but also have solid boundaries with them? Or do you wish to not forgive people? Describe a bond broken and how many years it took to talk to that person again. How has that been beneficial and how has it been not beneficial? So these are all really potent questions to chew on, and I appreciate you listening throughout this rant, this perception of the initiation of the self, initiation of the identity, and I will see you guys next time.